Welcome to MBAV 6601, which is the course called International Business. This is the PowerPoint lecture video for Chapter 3. In this presentation, I want to cover material in the book from Chapter 3 and also some material that's in the news from your country. I am Dr. Bruton, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. As we go through this material, you can email me if you have any questions. My email address is on the screen. However, to get a quicker answer, I encourage you to ask your tutor. In each presentation, I try to find actual news events from your country that pertain to our topic. After that, I will cover the critical issues of the chapter. The length of this presentation will be about 20 minutes from start to finish. Let's start with this headline. Court sector tries 279 corruption cases in 2019. All countries, all of them, have corruption. The question is something being done about it? Companies do not like to do business in countries with lots of corruption. There are organizations that measure corruption by country. I went online to see how Vietnam ranked. The more recent 2017 Corruption Perceptions Index by Transparency International ranked Vietnam at 107th place out of 180 countries. It said, while it has improved over the years, corrupt practices remain evident in the business landscape. I checked the US, it ranked 22nd, and I checked China, it ranked 87th. In the small print of the article, and it's on the slide as well, it says the courts handled 494,000 cases. The important thing to note is that your country seems to be using a legitimate legal system to enforce law and order. The fact that this level of corruption is public knowledge and that your government is aware of the problem is a good thing. The textbook discusses the two extremes of political ideology. You have democracy at one end of the spectrum, and then you have totalitarianism at the other end of the spectrum. The reason that this is important is because the government in power highly influences the type of economic market you have. Normally, a democratic government will have a free market where the consumer is king. An autocratic government usually has a command market where the government owns the means of production and produces goods and products that it thinks are important. We will discuss the differences between a free market economy and a command market economy in Chapter 4. I will close out this slide by saying that a theocratic government, one dominated by religious beliefs like in Iran or Sudan, falls in the totalitarianism side. A lot of countries use democracy in their government. For the record, simple democracy is using elections to choose people and to pass referendums. For a simple democracy to work, all you need to do is vote for something, and the winner is determined by 51% of the vote. What we find is that many governments don't abide by that decision. If the people vote for something that the rulers don't like, they will simply overrule it. Basic democracy is no guarantee that citizens have a voice in their government. That's when we get into liberal democracy. In addition to voting, a liberal democracy will guarantee free and fair elections, the rule of law to guarantee those elections, a separation of powers between the head of the government, the judicial system, and the legislators, and there also must be protection of basic liberties. The slide that we looked at earlier about the court system here in Vietnam seemed to me to use the rule of law to prosecute those criminals. Notice the picture of the girl in the slide with the purple finger. In 2005, Iraq had its first parliamentary election. After the Iraqi citizens voted, they dipped their finger in the indelible purple ink so that they could not vote again that same day or in the next few days, as that ink would not wash off for a few days. That helped to prevent voter fraud. The way a country's government handles assets owned by out-of-country investors is referred to as political risk. Think about this. Would Samsung have invested $17 billion in your country if it thought that their factories would be nationalized, or there was excessive red tape, or there was a high level of corruption, or there was strong labor unions, or there was high inflation? No. Samsung would not have invested that money. According to Samsung, Vietnam has low political risk. The WTO, the World Trade Organization, has created rules that result in due process. Due process is a legal term that means that you will get fair treatment through the normal judicial system. Companies do not like risk. That's why they buy insurance and why they have hedging strategies. Building a factory in a stable country is one way of mitigating political risk. According to the textbook, there are 4 types of political risk. You have systemic risk, which means the government is weak and the rule of law is weaker. In this category, you have corruption and policies that change frequently. Policies that change frequently make it hard to plan far out, and that's what companies like to do. They like to plan their operations where tax policies and currency strength are predictable. Countries with a high level of corruption would make it difficult to achieve legal justice or due process should it be needed. Procedural risk means that there are impediments that constrain the flexibility of international companies. Usually, governments favor local business over international business, and laws are structured that way. Consider that some countries have a bloated bureaucracy to reduce their unemployment, and it makes it difficult to get things done. Distributive risk gradually eliminate the local property rights of international companies. This could be a form of nationalization, or where the local government prohibits sending products or profits out of the country. Let me share a story. Starting in 1974, PepsiCo set up business in Russia. They made a profit, but Russia at that time did not have a convertible currency or enough reserve currencies to let PepsiCo take profits out of the country. The solution was genius. PepsiCo took their profits in rubles and bought vodka. Russia makes lots of vodka. They exported their vodka to the U.S., and since they had expertise in marketing, they marketed the vodka in the U.S. and made even more money than they would have otherwise. The last category of political risk is catastrophic risk. It means that the business environment was devastated for all businesses. This could be caused by war, disease, or being in an earthquake or active volcano zone. Since we are talking international business, you need to be familiar with the different legal systems in different countries. First, there are three types of laws. Constitutional law, which sets up the country's judicial system. Then you have criminal law, which identifies crimes and the appropriate punishment. And then you have civil and commercial law, which regulates fairness and efficiency in business transactions. As a manager or owner of an international business, civil law and commercial law is what you will be dealing with the most. Depending on the country, criminal laws and commercial laws come from three sources. The Anglo countries use a common law system. The laws originate from tradition or precedent. In other words, this is the way it has been done, and we will continue to do it this way in the future. Common law is used in about 10 to 15 countries, but those countries generate a significant amount of the world's business. By Anglo countries, we're talking the US, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, those countries. Now, civil law originates from the Roman Empire. The Roman emperor would make a law and it would be carried out in all of the provinces in the empire. Other countries had monarchs too that passed laws, and they were sent out to the furthest reaches of their territory. So, if a law is not tradition, but is legislated or dictated, it's called civil law. Civil law is the most common in the world. It's found in 150 countries. Let me touch on theocratic law. It's similar to common law in that it's based on religious traditions, usually Islamic. You will find it being used very strongly in about 30 Islamic countries. Two other categories mentioned in the textbook are customary law and mixed law. Customary law is usually found in indigenous communities where social customs take precedent. Mixed law is the combination of using two of the above legal systems. Many countries use a blend of laws that fit their needs. When doing business in another country, you need to find lawyers familiar with the laws in the host country. You can find those lawyers by asking other international businesses who they recommend. In international business, you will face legal problems and these are the most common that you will encounter. Contracts, if you buy, sell, rent, or hire, you will need a contract of some sorts. In a common law country, the contracts require precise details. In a civil law or theocratic law country, the details are not that important. Product safety. The wealthier countries like the US or Canada impose more stringent standards. Another story is about Lego brand plastic toy building blocks. Lego plastic toys are not manufactured in China because of their reputation for having a lax attitude on safety. Legos were afraid that China would put some sort of toxic chemicals into their plastic toys. Lego's toys are made in Mexico instead. The category of legal jurisdiction, sometimes the problem falls under the WTO, which means arbitration would be in New York or Brussels. Sometimes a trade conflict doesn't fall under the WTO. Unless a location is stipulated in a contract, the host country would be the location of judicial arbitration. Corruption can negate the rule of law. If your adversaries have bribed high-level authorities, the rule of law might not apply. Another situation may be if you or your company have not offered bribes, corrupt officials may withhold government approvals to do business. Intellectual property. We all know that China is the worst violator. That has been part of the problem with the trade deal that President Trump is negotiating with them. Intellectual property is the theft of inventions, software, movies, songs, ideas, patents, and even chemical processes. China in the past has insisted that companies share technology and even build factories in their country using the new technology. Other countries are not that sophisticated, but they do steal the technology. Here are some news headlines taken from some English-speaking Vietnam online newspapers. Let me read them out aloud. Tech sector fulfills task for 2019. The article mentions that the Ministry of Science and Technology set up an intellectual property system that enhances competitiveness. The article did not go into detail, they just addressed intellectual properties. Next one, Prime Minister orders intensifying fight against crime, smuggling, and fraud. Your government recognizes the problem and is taking steps. Number 3, the next one says, China says in touch with U.S. on signing a Phase 1 trade deal. Now this was in the Saigon Times Daily, and there was a mention about intellectual property. It said, quote, the deal also includes stronger Chinese legal protections for patents, trademarks, and copyrights, including improved criminal and civil procedures to combat online infringement, pirated, and counterfeit goods, end quote. And then the last headline reads, Vietnam recognizes legal status of the Hague-based arbitration court. Now the article dates back a few years, but I thought it would be relevant for you to see this. The article goes on to say that The Hague has the authority to settle international disputes involving a wide range of legal issues, not just trade issues, but other issues as well. By doing this, your government has lowered political risk a lot. That finishes up Chapter 3. This chapter provides you a good overview of how political and legal conditions affect international business. Next time, we will start Chapter 4. Thank you.